He divorced me because I couldn't give him a child. Not because I stopped loving him, not because I gave up on us, but because my body didn't do what he thought it should. And 1 year later, he showed up at my door, stunned, when he saw my belly. I still remember the way the morning sun poured into our old penthouse the day the papers were signed. Ethan wore his favorite Italian suit, polished and composed like always. Our lawyer said, "Congratulations, Mr. Caldwell," like it was some kind of award. I walked out of that glass tower with nothing but a suitcase, a settlement, and a heart ripped in two. 8 years together, and he chose legacy over love. He wanted children, his children. When the tests came back and the specialists shook their heads, I offered everything. Adoption, surrogacy. I even offered to step aside. He took that last one. I moved into a smaller apartment in Queens' quiet, warm mine. Grieved the life I thought I'd live, cried into grocery store wine, and deleted every reminder of him except one. Our last round of IVF. The one he didn't even show up for because he was in Tokyo signing a deal. The one I had to do alone. I didn't tell him it had resulted in 3 viable embryos, because by then, he'd already started fading away. Business trips, late nights, empty words. But there was one person who didn't fade. Dr. Henry Lawson, our fertility specialist. He was the one who looked me in the eyes and said, "There's one more thing we could try. It's experimental, not approved, but I believe in it." I asked him one question. "Will it hurt?" He said, "No more than what you've already been through." So I signed the consent form. And I did it alone. 7 months later, my startup was taking off, connecting families to adoption resources, and I was showing. Big time. My story got picked up in a local magazine. One glossy photo of me in a maternity dress, and the next thing I knew, my doorman was calling upstairs. "Ms. Bennett, your ex-husband is downstairs." I opened the door to Penthouse B, and there he was. Ethan Caldwell, the billionaire who signed me away. Hair slicked back, eyes wide, and words fumbling out of his mouth. How is this possible? I didn't answer right away. Just let him look. Let him feel what it was like to be on the outside of a miracle. He finally asked, "Whose baby is it?" I sat down, slowly pressing my hand to my stomach. "Ours, Ethan." His face cracked like the truth finally split something open inside him. He started pacing. "But," the doctor said. "I know what they said." I cut him off. "And I also know what you didn't say. Like when you told me I was a dead end. When you decided having your name on a birth certificate mattered more than having me." He flinched. Good. Then came the twist he didn't see coming. Just as I was about to explain more, the door swung open. "V. I brought the pistachio you've been craving," Henry called, and then he froze. Ethan froze too. Both men locked eyes. "Dr. Lawson," Ethan said, almost spitting it. Henry stayed calm. "Mr. Caldwell." It was a silent duel of egos, one man who walked away and one who stayed when things got hard. Ethan looked at me, eyes narrowing. "You two, were you?" "No," I said firmly. "Not until after. Not until months after." That night, Ethan left speechless. The next morning he called, said he couldn't stop thinking about it. About her, our daughter, asked to meet. I agreed. He opened the door to his new penthouse, sleek, sterile, soulless. Not a single photo on the wall. I sat on a leather couch that felt more like a waiting room. He asked everything: timing process, even the science. I told him about the protocol Henry had developed, about the hormones, the risk, the silence, the hope. How I found out I was pregnant the same day the divorce papers hit my inbox. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, angry. "Because you made it clear what you wanted, and I wasn't it anymore." His face fell. "And Henry," he asked quietly, "is he the father?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "Not biologically, but he was there when you weren't." Ethan didn't fight back. He just sat there, shoulders sagging. "I need to be in her life," he whispered. "That's not your choice anymore," I said. "But maybe, if you earn it." 3 weeks later, I was honored at a gala, our foundation's first major fundraiser. I stood on stage, baby bump out lights in my eyes, and said to a room full of donors, When I was told I couldn't have children, I believed it. But sometimes, never just means not yet. The applause shook the room. Ethan was in the back watching. He found me afterward and said something I'll never forget. I used to think legacy meant blood, DNA, a name on a building. But watching you tonight, I realized it means creating something that lasts because it mattered. He handed me a velvet box. Inside was a locket, his grandmother's. For her, he said. A month later, I went into labor early. Emergency C-section, blood pressure through the roof. Henry was panicking, nurses flying around. Ethan arrived in a panic, too soaking wet from the rain-suit wrinkled face, pale. "I'll wait," he said, nodding to Henry. "You go first." When he finally met her, tiny and fierce, in her NICU incubator, he broke. His hand trembled as he touched her. "I'm your father," he whispered, and I believed him. Weeks passed. We found a rhythm. Henry and I raised her. Ethan visited often respectfully. He never pushed. Just showed up with books, lullabies, stories from when we were younger. One day he told me he was stepping back from his company, starting a new initiative in her name, to support fertility research, to make sure no one else felt what we had. That's how the Amelia Project was born. 3 companies, 2 foundations, and 1 little girl who changed everything. We hosted a joint fundraiser months later. Ethan gave a speech. Henry stood beside him. I held our daughter in my arms. Ethan looked out at the crowd and said, "The greatest legacy I'll ever leave isn't a company or a building. It's the chance we gave to families who thought they'd never have one." And in that moment, I realized something. Maybe families aren't always built the way we imagine. Sometimes they're built from pain, science, forgiveness, and love in unexpected forms. So now I ask you, was I wrong to keep the pregnancy to myself? Was Ethan wrong for chasing legacy the way he did? And what would you have done if you were me? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't just about one baby girl. It's about all of us, our choices, our pride, our regrets, and the people we decide to show up for, even when it's almost too late. He divorced me because I couldn't give him a child. Not because I stopped loving him, not because I gave up on us, but because my body didn't do what he thought it should. And 1 year later, he showed up at my door, stunned, when he saw my belly. I still remember the way the morning sun poured into our old penthouse the day the papers were signed. Ethan wore his favorite Italian suit, polished and composed like always. Our lawyer said, "Congratulations, Mr. Caldwell," like it was some kind of award. I walked out of that glass tower with nothing but a suitcase, a settlement, and a heart ripped in 2. 8 years together, and he chose legacy over love. He wanted children, his children. When the tests came back and the specialists shook their heads, I offered everything. Adoption, surrogacy. I even offered to step aside.